to the Slaying Self Doubt YouTube channel. Here is where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to walk into their God given purpose. How do we do that, you ask? Well, we create safe and brave spaces just like this for Black women to show up authentically as themselves. So join me and sometimes some of my friends or our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I am Coach Felicia, and together we will find our fears and slay them. Hey, Slayers, welcome back to another episode of Nice Self Doubt Podcast. It's your girl, Coach Felicia. Happy New Year, y'all. If you've been following me on social media, you will know that my family was sick. Literally the first week of the year. Then we had snow. It just was a lot going on. And I did not get a chance to record anything prior to that, but we're here. It doesn't even matter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to all the new Slayers joining our movement. No matter how you found me, whether it was by way of a guest episode, solo episode, YouTube, you found me on Google, Instagram, the TikTok. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And while you're listening to this episode, I ask that you share with at least 10 people. I still have a goal of hitting 1,000 downloads. And last year we ended 2024 with 80,000 downloads. So I believe it's possible. We can do it, guys. Together, we can hit this goal and exceed it. And I know for certain the last time that we were having this conversation, it all rests on me, right? Because part of the reason why we were doing this, that you're here, is to listen to me. And I recognize that last year, if you listen to the last episode, I kind of go through this whole thing of just like what 2024 was for me and where I recognized I needed to just really step into the gift that God has continued to give me, right? And that is this podcast and this community of people who listen to the podcast and also are watching me on YouTube. Hey, y'all, hey. So make sure that if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you do that. Um, I am working this year on building community. That is something that I feel like God is probably what started this thing, was community of to build a community of women who were going through the same troubles, who are dealing with their self-doubt. And I kind of was going back and forth with what that was supposed to look like. And so I kind of did all the things that I was seeing other people do. Child, okay, microphone. I kind of was doing all the things that I seen other people do. And yeah, some of it worked for me and some of it didn't, to be quite honest. And so this year, I'm really kind of trying to go back to my roots of just figuring out, God, like, what do you want, right? Like, first of all, it has to be sustainable for me and it has to be um purposeful for you, right? And so if you are not a part of Slayer Nation News and you're not receiving the newsletters, there will be a link in the show notes that and it's on Instagram for you to join the newsletter. I really want you all to complete this survey or just kind of feedback form that I created to just kind of find out like what's working and what isn't working. Like obviously there are lots of things that are not happening. So I know when you read it, you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't even know this was. It isn't, right? But I do want to know like what are the things that people want. I get a mixture of things, from in-person events to virtual events to I tried for a minute to just make the podcast all interviews, and people were like, no. Although I love the interviews, so neither are going away, like solo episodes plus the interviews. But I really do think that there are things that I know that I need to do that this thing, if you're watching, this thing was distracting me over there. There's things that I know that I need to do that I just haven't. I was doing too much. And so a part of doing too much is that you don't do a lot of things well. So I would like to adding a slang self-doubt community, whatever that's going to look like. I would like to build that well, because I do feel like as we continue to grow, as we continue to get older, as we go into different phases of our, you need that community, right? To not only gain from the people above you, but to that are ahead of you, but to also give back to the people behind you, because there are other women who were in your shoes, right? And so I'm always reminded that like there is somebody right now listening to this episode in 2025 that the 2019 version of me could not have spoke to them. The 2019 version of me was still trying to figure out what I was doing, right? And so as I was thinking about what we were going to do this year, I really wanted to kind of get back to the basics of what slaying self-doubt is, where, how do you find it, what are some things that we need to do, and just talk about it, right? I think that, like I said, that is literally at its core what we were doing in the beginning, and I got away from that, just doing my own thing. So we're not doing that anymore. So today I want to talk about where to start with your self doubt. Oftentimes I get people who are like, "Oh, I love your Instagram name," like, and not necessarily it speaks to people when they see it, and I tell them what the name of the business is and the name of the podcast, and they be like, "Oh, that's dope! Like, I like that." And you all, those of you who have been here, it was a God-given thing. God gave me the name. I had no idea what it meant, and it's taken me years to figure out what it actually means, right? And so I feel like that now I'm in a better place to be able to go back to the beginning, because when I was in it, child, I was like, I guess this is what it is. I'm like, and this is just my experience, right? And so I tend to err on the side of caution. You guys, I'm not a therapist. Okay, I am a coach, certified. Thank you very much. But I'm not a therapist. I am not a licensed professional in that manner. So, always, 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 Jesus and therapy, y'all. So, get somebody to talk to if some of these things are hitting home and you are like, I really need to dig deeper, right? So, the first thing I want to talk about is recognizing the root of your self doubt. And I think that is so important because oftentimes self doubt shows up in a multitude of ways. It shows up as procrastination, as avoidance, as depression, as anxiety, as um, addiction, as like there are all these things that it manifests to, right? But in order to realize in order to know why those are symptoms of the self-doubt, right? So if you're understanding what I'm saying, like the symptom of you having self-doubt is that you procrastinate on everything that needs to be done, right? The symptom of your self-doubt is that you avoid the things that need to be done. A symptom of self-doubt is that you talk down to yourself, whether it's verbally or internal. You're having a negative conversation in your head, right? You have limiting beliefs. Maybe a part of your self doubt is lack of self worth, right? Lack of self love, and maybe a part of your self doubt is dependence on something else. I said addiction, but I meant to say dependence because I mean, I guess it could be addiction, but dependence on something else, meaning like a substance, a person, a an outlet, whatever that thing may be, you're dependent on something else because you haven't figured out what that thing is that is at the core of why you are doing these things, right? And so for me on this journey, some of it came through therapy for sure, but some of it came through like a real heart to heart with myself. Sometimes, and a heart to heart, and we always say excuse me, a come to Jesus moment, right? Sometimes a come to Jesus moment isn't necessarily, I mean, Jesus is there, but it's not with him, right? Sometimes a come to Jesus moment for me has been sitting in front of a mirror or standing in front of a mirror in my bathroom and really being like, say the thing that scares you, right? And okay, the thing that scares me in the very beginning of this journey was that who I was in 29, there was a younger version of me that was riddled with self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and I acted out in several different ways. So some of it was dependency, some of it was avoidance, some of it was procrastination. And so because of those things, it diminished my self-worth. So I tolerated certain things in certain friendships, relationships that maybe I wouldn't have. I mean, I definitely wouldn't now, but I think that has to do with age. But because I didn't value myself and my thoughts or my ideas or whatever have you, I was very dependent on, well, what you think, what that mean, or just not doing it at all, right? And so when I kind of got to I guess the source of it all was, I don't think there was one moment, in my life where it was like this thing happened to me. For some people, it is literally this thing happens to you and that is changes the trajectory of your life. For me, I don't think it was one thing. I think there were several things, and they may not have been, none of them were awful either, right? They all were just moments in time that I internalized what was actually happening and made it about me, right? And so just to give some like minor examples, and I've shared this before on the podcast, um, you got to go back. Okay. We had 293 episodes. I couldn't tell you when. Okay. But it's in there somewhere. Right. Some of it was, being the oldest child. Right. I have an older child. And so I see it now. There is an expectation in being the first. Right. Um, Especially if your demeanor is a certain, like if you ain't causing too much trouble, you generally chill. They don't really bother you that much. You know what I'm saying? But the moment feathers get ruffled, right? Then it's a thing, because now, because you have set in your mind that like I ain't have to worry about you when things get hard, I didn't know how to process it. So when I did have to say, mommy, daddy, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z is happening, or yada, 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 it was always like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you do that? Some of it, like now being an adult and we're in this a different generation, like we all know if you were born in the 80s, 70s, probably even before, I don't know what before that, but I'm an 80s baby, right? And so you know that it was children are to be seen and not heard, right? So to voice your opinion, to voice your dissatisfaction, to voice like, I don't even understand what you're talking about, was like oftentimes um combated with like, why would you even say that? Like, respect your elder, whatever the case may be. So a lot of times is that when I would share what I was feeling, because that's the type of person that I am, it would always be like, you're wrong, right? Not in those words, but that was how I would internalize it, like that my feelings were invalid. Let me say that instead. And so then you go forward, right? You're in different relationships, whether they be friendships, intimate relationships, and you share your feelings in that space, and then somebody gaslights you and be like, you did that to yourself, like you feel this way, like you making yourself feel this way. Well, no, like, well, at 16, 17 years old, now you thinking like, well, maybe I am making myself feel this way, right? You're in school and things are happening, you are expecting things to go a certain type of way, and in high school's hard, right? Middle school is hard, and you're looking at different things and you're wondering like, is this how things are supposed to be? Or you are thinking that this is how your life's going to turn out, and it just, I thought I was going to go in that direction, and it doesn't happen that way, right? You start to second guess yourself. You're at work now. I'm older, and now I'm at work, and there are put jobs that are happening and stuff, and not jobs, but like career shifts and different things that are changing. As I'm trying to figure these things out, I'm second guessing myself, because there have been multiple things that I have internalized as I'm the problem, right? And so that's not to say that I wasn't ever the problem. I'm sure that I was. But what happens is that now I don't trust myself, right? I tell myself I'm gonna start uh prime example. Listen, y'all, we about to get riggedy real quick, okay? If you was in the 90s, right, as a Christian, I don't know what it is or what it was, but like this about to be the realest thing. One of the realest things I've ever said on here. The number of times we as teenagers went to that pulpit to get saved, like it was like a weekly thing. Like you would just, like the way I would act up all week and then on Sunday go to church with my parents and they have to walk down to the front, right? Like you always are needing prayer, always needing to resave yourself, and knowing now that that's not really what happened, but it was the guilt, right? Some of it also came from the pulpit, right? Like you didn't know how to talk to my generation, so you made us feel bad about the things that you didn't understand, and so we always felt like we had to repent, and so we weren't good enough unless we were doing nothing, or unless we were like, it was bad in the Lord's eyes. So now you got me doubting whether or not Jesus actually forgives me. Like this is real talk, right? Like I'm telling you, like I grew up in the church, so I'm watching all of my counterparts. We are consistently having a good time, but then having to feel bad about ourselves. Now, some of that is the Holy Spirit and some of that is conviction, but at the same time, some of it is the generation above us, before us, not understanding that things are just different, right? And we just going to do things differently, but you are condemning us, or it feels like condemnation because we're not doing it the way you wanted it to be done or the way you think it should be done. Okay. So all of that, compile that, keep it going. You're in relationships, you get cheated on, you have friends who backstab you, you have jobs that fire you for no reason. You just compile all these different things, and it just eventually you are going to be like, something is wrong within me. And so then it makes you second guess all the things. So when you get an idea or you want to try something, now you're scared. Now you're fearful of whether or not, do I really want to do that? Am I sure? I've said this before. We talk all the time about I saw this and heard it in a sermon where they asked, what was the first question in the Bible? It was the serpent asking Eve, did God really say that? Right? All the enemy has to do is put doubt in our head. All it took is for somebody to say, why you want to go to that school? And now you like, well, how do I want to go? You had a good reason, but because they said it with some like, you think you going there? Like now you like, well, maybe I'm not going there. Maybe I should. And so now these the people around you, whether they're in your family or outside of your family, at your job, at your church, whatever it is, they are adding to the internal self-doubt that you already have. And so when you need to, so part of my thing was is that when I started this journey and God gave me this, was really trying to figure out, where did this all become? Because at the time when God gave it to me, I was like, I don't have no self-doubt issues. Like, what he talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, this don't got nothing to do with me. And then as I was going to the journey, I was like, oh no, girl, yes, you do. Like, it's a whole bunch of self-doubt, right? And like I said, a part of your self doubt is that you don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself because you're second guessing yourself, because other people have second guessed you and questioned you majority of your life. Like I said, sometimes it can be subtle. Sometimes it can be something really big that you know in your head, this is the time. This is when I started second guessing myself. Sometimes it can be external. It don't even have nothing to do with you. You could be watching somebody else struggling with their self doubt and be like, dang, I don't want to be like that. I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm not going to do that thing. Right. But I believe that in order to slay our self doubt, we have to know what the root cause is, and you have to do your own work. Again, I am a firm believer of therapy. And if you do not feel safe enough with yourself, I believe that for me, God has given me an ability, unlike anything else that I can do, I guess, is to talk. And I'm a good talker. So I'm gonna talk you to myself clearly, okay? Um, and so in talking to myself, sometimes I could say the things, like look at myself in the mirror and be like, Bunny, this is the reason why you do these things. Blah blah. This is why you feel this way. This is what bothers you. This is what hurts you. And then I got to the point where I could share that with other people, and I found the safe people that I could tell my feelings to, and to be able to kind of go there. But if you don't have that yet, please get with a licensed professional counselor, therapist, to be able to figure out what is the root of your self doubt. The next thing that you need to do is work on, once you recognize that, you got to shift your mindset, right? A part of, and some, it's two, because this is gonna go into the third one. So I'm gonna just say it because the two things are, the last two things are, shift your mindset and take small, consistent steps. So a part of shifting your mindset is taking action, right? I doubted myself for 2 years. Like, I didn't know what God wanted me to do with this. But for a year straight, I would not record this podcast. I have people that I was in small group with that um I would just tell them, like, I know God is putting it, and they would ask me all the time, when the podcast, and I was just like, I don't know. I recorded that very first episode. If you go back and listen to episode number 1, I recorded that joint in my basement, and I literally have wrote this whole thing down, what I wanted to talk about. It was all over the place because I was so nervous. I was so scared of what other people were going to think. Like, oftentimes I say slaying self doubt is personal to me because it is me. Through this journey, I have realized everything that I do is slaying self doubt because I am a person who has it. I did not recognize that I had it, but once I knew, like I knew that this is it, right? And so when I made the decision and the choice to say, God, this is my yes, and I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to do these things. I had to. I couldn't come on here every single time. Oh, woe is me. Like that's not gonna help you. What's the point of listening to? I wouldn't want to listen to that all the time. I wouldn't want to listen to me talking about, like, why are you gonna waste 30 minutes, 45 minutes listening to somebody in your ear saying, well, I was gonna do this, but I didn't, and I didn't do this because I was scared. Like, yes, that is true, but every single time I had to do something different. And some of shifted my mindset, some of my work, my small consistent steps, my action was doing this podcast, was getting on here every single week and sharing the things that I was nervous about, sharing the fact that God called me from my job, sharing the fact that I had self-worth issues, sharing the fact that I didn't value myself for a period of time, sharing the fact that I felt some type of way about being a single mom, sharing being in a blended family, sharing all the things that to me felt like secrets, right? And felt like shame and guilt and doubt. All of that is the same thing, or it's kind of tied together. But in order for me to slay it, I had to say it. My pastor would say bars. Okay. In order for me to slay it, I had to say it. All right. Because it would, if it stayed in my head, it would just be me. But sharing this out loud with you all and in this community gave me freedom to be like, that ain't even true. Like, once I said it, it was like, well, that's dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, what, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about it, I'm like, well, why would I think that, right? But because I didn't know any better, and because I didn't know that that was what I was struggling with, on the inside it felt so heavy. But once I was releasing some of these things, it made me feel so much better. Like, man, like, I'm not by myself, because the number of people would be like, I need this, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much for saying that. To me recognizing that those things weren't true. The things that I was believing about myself were absolutely false. One of the things I think I shared one time was that when I did the accreditation for I actually did these two things when I was a part of my entrepreneurship journey, is that I went into this program with Cornell University for women entrepreneurship. And then I also did this coaching program. And for me, because the school I went to for high school, it does not exist anymore. But the school I went to was very much so like a Quaker school or something. It was interesting. I'm not gonna say weird, just interesting. But they absolutely poured their attention and their efforts into the kids that they knew were excelling, that they would probably bring more people to the school, right? Both of my parents being, you know, the people in the family that made it, who were, my father was an entrepreneur, had no idea that that's what he was doing. My mother was working in the government. Like, they both were doing well for themselves. They had made it in their family, so they're focused on working and doing the things that they needed to do. Like, education was important, but I don't think they realized how important, right? And so I skated by high school, and I when I say you I skated, child, I skated, okay? To this day, I don't think my mother saw one report card in all 4 years. I used to get my sister to take it, put it in my room. Like, it was just one. It, it it's crazy now, but it was like I didn't make an effort. Like, I didn't make an effort because I didn't think anybody really cared, right? And so, because in my mind, it's like, as long as I get through here, that's fine. Like, my mom was big on, like, you graduating and you going to college. That was like, you gonna do it. But not knowing that the preparation starts in high school, right? So if I didn't care in high school, do I really care when I get to college? Absolutely not, right? So we go through all the work, and I'm talking about I had to go through summer school, like a summer bridge program, to get into Hampton. I get in there, I get through that by the skin of my teeth as well. Okay. And when I completely failed my first year at Hampton, because I wasn't going to class. I did not care what was happening. It wasn't important to me, right? And so that created a narrative in my mind that I didn't have what it took to finish school. I didn't have it because I quit, right? And I just was like, I'm moving on with my life, right? And so there's other things that I've done that clearly doesn't like make that a valid statement or a valid thought, but it was always something that like even I just I couldn't figure it out. Now, I also recognize school ain't for everybody, and I could have been one of those people. But my story that I told myself was just it wasn't that. It was more of like you're a failure, right? So when I enter into these programs, I'm like, God, I know you telling me this, but Slim, you was there in 98. Like, what's the difference now? Like, what is going to be the difference? And I was intentional about making sure I showed up to every class. I was doing study partners. I asked questions. I was like, I this is what I wanted, so I made every effort to do it. Now, did self doubt still show up in there? It did, because there was people in there that were like they had their masters and they're in the same. I'm in the same class as you, and baby, what? Like, you got people who are like doing it, right? And I'm over here like, I'm just trying to see if I can make it. Like, I don't even know what's going to happen. But I finished. I graduated. I passed the test. When I tell you that was such validation for me that that story I had told myself back in 98 was not true. I can finish a program. I can graduate. I can do those things. Now, some of it had to be, I had to take it seriously. I had to shift my mindset and be intentional about what it is that I wanted to do. But I spoke positivity over my life, even though and when the moments where I was having doubt and anxiety and fear and guilt and all of those things were coming up for me, I had to say, why are you doing this? The purpose of you doing this is because A, God told you to. That's enough right there. But B, you want to make sure I don't have to go to the number of people that are coaches, air quotes, who have no certification. It's not wasn't it didn't need to happen. It wasn't something that I had to do. It's something that I wanted to do for myself, but also for my business, to make sure that I was doing the right thing. Like, I ain't want to be out here just pretending. Like, nah, man. Like, this is me being a good steward over what God has given me. Like, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. And so what doing that helped me to change how I thought about myself and the story I continuously told myself. Now, at 44 years old, there are still moments where I have self doubt. There are still moments where I am unsure about the steps that I'm going to take. The difference between then and now is that I know where it started from. I know where it came from. I know how to shift my mindset, and I know how to take action, because a part of changing anything requires action. You can want to lose weight all day long. You can believe it. You can write it down. You can journal it. You can pray about it. You can do whatever it is you want to do. But if you don't put no action behind that, nothing happens. Faith without works is dead. There is some work you're gonna have to do, right? And so I think that as we continue to be on this land self doubt journey, I really want us to like reset. This is a great conversation for at the beginning of the year. Like, I want you to think about the things that are holding you back. I want you to think about what is the root cause of your self-doubt. Where do you even know what the root of your self-doubt is? Have you had a come to Jesus moment with yourself to ask yourself, girl, what is up? Like, what's happening? Why are we like this, right? And having to tell the truth. I had a therapist on here that says, if you want the peace that surpasses all understanding, you got to be willing to tell the truth. And telling the truth means to tell the truth about your mother, your father, your daddy. I mean, your daddy. I mean, maybe you got a father and a daddy. I don't know. Your spouse, your cousin, your auntie, your sister, your brother, your best friend, your teacher, whatever. But in order to have peace in your life, you have to be able to tell the truth. And it starts with us. It starts with you. Like, I have to tell the truth about me in order for me to get to where God is trying to get me to. Because here's the thing, it's going to get done. The question is that the things that God gives you, is it going to be done by you? Or are you going to let your self doubt, your insecurity, and all of those things stop you from doing what it is that God is calling you to do because you're afraid, because you are unsure? Some of it is just doing the hard work of like telling the truth about yourself and saying the thing that is like you think it, but you're afraid to say it. And what I say earlier, you gotta say it to slay it. Okay, say it to slay it. I might think about changing the title of this joint, but I think that I truly believe that once you recognize the root of your self doubt, did you change your mindset slowly but surely? This didn't happen over. Y'all watched the. I've said this before. If you've been a part of this journey from the beginning, and I know some of the people who have, you have seen my evolution. You have seen from where I started to where I am. There's still more growth that has to happen because, baby, if you ain't growing, you're dying. And I'm beep, 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 beep. Okay. I got to post. All right. So as long as I am growing, I'm getting somewhere. Right. And so a part of doing that is like, these are the things that you're seeing me do. You're seeing me have these conversations. A lot of my come to Jesus moments is been on this podcast and just sharing whatever it is that I'm feeling and what's going on. And you have watched me take small, consistent steps. Now, there's things that I still, like I said, I got to work on. Like I should have, I'm trying to build this community and I ain't been doing that. But now I need to tell the truth about to myself. What is the fear? Why are you if I had to ask a question for myself, it would be what is holding you back from growing this community? That's something I need to sit with because there's a reason why over 5 years it has not been built. It's a reason why over 5 years, almost six, that I'm still like, I got to figure it out. Something is something. It's something. I don't know what it is, but you know what? I'm gonna figure it out in next episode. I'm gonna tell y'all. Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all that. So that's gonna be my question to me. But my question to you is, do you know the root of your self doubt? What is it? I want you to really think about that. And I would love for you to let me know what you think the root of your self doubt is. I would love to keep this conversation going over on the Instagram and even on YouTube. Because I think that that's a part of community too. It's just talking about it and us knowing that we're not by ourselves. You're not alone. I'm here with you. All right, y'all. As always, thank y'all so much for rocking with me. Remember, take charge of your mental health and get 10% off your first month of therapy at betterhelp.com/slanging, SLAYING, because Jesus and therapy. If you're not subscribed to the Slayer Nation newsletter, I think I might, excuse me, might change that. I don't like the way it's um just subscribe to the Slayer Self Doubt newsletter, okay? Please share this episode with at least 10 people. We are trying to hit 100,000 downloads this year, guys. I got big goals for Slaying Self Doubt. Like I do, and I know that takes some action, but and at the same time, I need people to know that we're here. Okay. Follow me on Instagram and anywhere on socials at Slaying Self Doubt. Until next week, keep slaying, sis. See ya. As always, y'all, thank you for rocking with me. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast and you find it valuable, you enjoy this channel and you find it valuable, please consider donating by buying me a coffee. Your support will help me to create new content, get an official podcast studio, and ultimately reach more people. That's what we need. We need more people on this movement. Okay. If you're not already signed up to the newsletter, go to my website, www.slayingselfdoubt.com, and sign up for the Slayer Nation newsletter. That's where you'll get updates, where you'll get what's going on. You'll get the news first. You don't have to wait until I announce it or hear. Okay. And lastly, well, second to last, please make sure that you share this with at least 10 people. We are trying to reach 100,000 downloads this year, and every subscription, every share counts. So we need it. We need you to send it out to your peoples so they can help us hit our goal this year. Lastly, if you are not already following me on Instagram, you need to go on over there and follow me at Slaying Self Doubt. Until the next episode, see ya.